I'm Dwayne Schultes, and on this Vital Health podcast, I'm at the Nordic Precision Cancer Medicine Conference in Oslo. I'm meeting up with my colleagues and friends from the Primrose Project. Primrose stands for Precision Cancer Medicine Repurposing System using pragmatic clinical trials, funded from the EU Cancer Mission, and it's creating equitable implementation of precision cancer medicines across Europe. I'm speaking with Kjetil Taskén of Oslo University Hospital's Institute for Cancer Research and the coordinator of Primrose. Kjetil, it's always great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
I'm also joined by Anni, Lepland, the head of personalized medicine and oncology at the Estonian Cancer Network. Anni, it's a pleasure to meet you.
You too. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. And as always, I'm joined by Bettina Ryll from the Stockholm School of Economics Institute for Research and the Melanoma Patient Network Europe. Bettina, it's always good to see you.
Likewise.
Thanks for the invitation. On November 1st, we'll see the kickoff of the Joint Action for Personalized Cancer Medicine. The project is huge, 29 countries. In this podcast, we're going to look at what this joint action could specifically accomplish and how it relates to what you're doing at Primrose. Kjetil, can you tell me exactly what is a joint action and what you hope to accomplish in the project?
Joint actions in general are governmental collaboration projects that are set up when the European Commission wants something with the Cancer Mission and the Europe Beating Cancer Plan. They wanted quite a few things to happen that they organize under the EU for Health program, and it's about implementation of new things into healthcare. So basically when they set about joint action, it's advertised, you have to apply, but all the applicants from different countries are appointed by their government. Unless the conclusion is that the money cannot be absorbed or there is not enough competence to do something the Commission wants, it will be funded. There's only one application.
What is Primrose's role going to be within the project? Because you're doing drug repurposing drug trials. You're pretty far along. How do you see Primrose fitting into this much larger joint action on precision medicine?
The larger joint action on precision medicine, what the Commission wants to happen there and what's going to happen in that project is to sort of further along the implementation of precision cancer medicine. It has three arms. One is on precision prevention, that's quite new. Then there is what we traditionally think of as precision cancer medicine, that's diagnosis and treatment and how they're coupled, so that we stratify patients and personalize their treatment. And there's also precision follow-up that's going to be implemented. So the project has a certain scale and it's about setting out the framework that one can operate. Then to your question about how this relates to Primrose, what we've seen with Primrose is that we've been able to make a network of trials across Europe, that big national precision cancer medicine trials. We've been able to make them collaborate. We've put in data sharing agreements and we can aggregate data, and that sort of serves as a roadmap, you could say, for how things could be done at a larger scale in terms of European collaboration to gather data to produce the evidence of what's working and what's not working in precision medicine. When a lot of things become rare, the evidence is scarce and therefore there's uncertainty, associated with decisions by payers.
Bettina, obviously when we talk precision medicine, normally we're talking new indications, small indications, tight indications. You're using a repurposed asset. This is something that has a known risk profile. It's been in the market for a while. How is this different for you as someone who's been advocating for cancer care for, the last 2 decades?
For us, from a patient perspective, these trials were, I think the first appeal for us was that these provide an option for those of our patients who have nothing left. So I know that there's a lot of criticism, and it isn't new and shiny, but these are the people who have been through all available lines of treatment, and it is either this or nothing. And having the ability to, or the option to, and have access to advanced molecular profiling by whatever means, and another treatment line for that patient population is really important. And we know that efficacy across isn't, that impressive, because of course you start in the worst possible setting, but just the access and the opportunity to learn and to know that it will be hopefully a little bit better for the next one is, for us from that perspective, an extremely important piece in the puzzle of cancer care.
Now, the last time we met, Kjetil, when we spoke to you, you were in the process of trying to figure out how in the heck you were going to take all these countries and put all of the data together. You've worked with this successfully. How are the results? How has it worked?
In Primrose, we started 2 years ago, so it was 2 years this summer that we've been operating.
Yeah.
And what we've been able to do is that in the first 9 months, we set up all the data sharing agreements. And then we started to aggregate data from the different trials. So that's data that are out there that each trial could not capitalize on because they didn't have enough patients, basically. So it's a monthly meeting where they align the biomarkers for different cohorts. They agree on the biomarker definitions. There's homework for every meeting before, and then there is a cohort by cohort decision that each trial wants to contribute their data. We don't take all the data from the trials. We don't try to take it. We sort of say it's voluntary. You can come along. You can make the decision every time you put this sort of data. It then goes into a common share, and we can fill cohorts basically of patients so that we have sufficient numbers to sort of say, okay, here this seems to be working. This should be expand, etc. And then we see that we can go from what's called a stage 1 to stage 2 cohort with more patients. If it still is positive, we can entertain new discussions with the industry about starting basically what's like single-arm phase 2 trials to add more documentation. And it's all about gathering the evidence for indications that are rare, finding the patients around Europe in the different trials, and bringing the data together. And it actually worked wonderfully over the first 2 years, and we see that we can capitalize. It's a benefit for the patients, we find the results faster. It's a benefit for the investigators, and it's a benefit for the industry partners. That's worked very nicely, and there are all these other things that are also in the project. Control cohorts, how we would do the control cohorts, the science of how that's going to function, how we put them together, how we compare, how the statistics are going to work, the multi-stakeholder involvement, patient involvement or user involvement, all these other things are also in the project.
No, I mean, I've worked in health economics for 10 years, a lot of it in Europe, and trying to work cross-country in Europe it's been considered impossible, relatively speaking. How were you able to do it? Why was this successful? What was different?
First, this was it's a coalition of the willing. There are people that are interested. We found the right people around, and we've encouraged that they can get things to start in their country. Then people have decided to make similarly organized platform trials where the endpoints are the same. That's one of the prerequisites for aggregating the data. Then there is trust. We don't take the data from the different trials. We say they get to control their own data, they own their own data, they can voluntarily merge their data to basically contribute to build evidence. Also, it's distributed leadership. There's not one leader that tries to sort of take this. It's a governance structure with distributed leadership, you could say. I think that's part of why this has worked. If you try top-down instead of bottom-up, it may not work.
Yeah, but it's not even bottom-up. It's more like side-to-side in some respects. It's very flat. Now, Estonia is interesting because, first off, it's a small country. We're in Norway. It's 7 million people, and Estonia is
1.3.
It's like exactly 1/10 of that. Now, you have a very strong health registry, which has been put in place. I mean, you have a very good health data and opt-in data from the public, but it's still considered, I think the EU has a term of art called a widening country. What exactly does that mean in this context from Estonia? Why is Estonia widening? What does that mean?
So it was a definition that was introduced in one of the previous European funding programs, and describes country within the European Union that have less research activity. And for that, there are specific programs targeted at these countries with the intention to increase their specific capacity and overall, of course, across Europe, harmonize the level of research capacity, and with that, facilitate also connection between the countries.
Obviously, Estonia, because it has this really interesting registry, has a lot to offer. However, there have been some challenges. I understand you put in an application called Widera for part of the process that was rejected, but there are still some challenges that you'd like to address in the context of the joint action. What are those? What are you hoping to accomplish?
It links with what Kjetil was saying before. The collaboration is still a massive challenge for a lot of countries. And I mean collaboration between different countries, but also inside the country. So nationally, to make sure that all the stakeholders understand what PCM is and understand why they need to work together, why oncologists would like to initiate bottom-up approaches, and the governments need to also be in line and be involved in these kinds of EU projects. Otherwise, they just don't understand. We have seen in Primrose, if we work together, you can achieve so much more quicker than doing everything alone. I think we all have problems with healthcare professionals. We do not have...
No, how dare you?
We do, in the sense that we do not have enough people. We do not
Right.
have enough pathologists, for example. Oncologists, of course, we have issues. But maybe we could use some digital tools that could help to mitigate this issue. In Estonia, you have said that we are a digital country, so maybe some of the tools that have been also discussed in the Joint Action PCM, we could adapt much quicker than maybe other widening countries, for example. So I think this will be a challenge, but this could also somehow mitigate the challenge in the long run. And then maybe lastly, what I was thinking about when we are thinking about trials and making actually the lives of our cancer patients better is still the access to innovative drugs. If we look at different reports, then we can see that just perspective from Estonia is still in the bottom. We are 25th out of 27 EU countries to get access to innovative drugs. So in the joint action, we will hopefully also address this issue. We have been addressing it in the Primrose project. So we could take this knowledge that we have had there, how to discuss with pharma, how to provide drugs maybe to not just one country, one trial, but to the network.
Picking up on that, Primrose, as an open label study, has been very successful. What has been the secret sauce of that success? We've talked about it's flatter than it is, bottom up or top down, but obviously there's something else going on here. What is it that's made it work? Now, obviously, Bettina, you're a force to be reckoned with at human nature. Is it just you had a bunch of people who were oaring in the same direction and were just really motivated? Was it the fact that basically you did this outside of the regulatory structure? Dare I say it was quite free market approach to this? What was it?
The combination of factors. So it was like the right idea, or it was the idea whose time had come. So that's one piece. So timing, I definitely think, is a piece. Like the Cancer Mission really helped us and got us together. But apart from us, I think that just the one thing that really makes a difference is that this is real. I mean, this is not a hypothetical construct or something we try in a lab and then hope that someday someone might pick it up.
Or some bureaucrat drafts up somewhere on a desk without actually dealing with patients. Yeah.
But This is actually driven by clinicians and a real defined need. And we shouldn't forget there are patients on drugs in this trial. And I think that's very, very unusual for European projects. It's often small scale and then often it loses in the implementation or the scaling first. This is really driven by clinicians who are desperate for options for their patients. And I think we owe a lot to our Dutch colleagues who published the DRUP study on the protocol, who have been extremely willing and supportive for others to get started without trying to own them. So it started like as a parallel initiative. People picked up the protocol and said, we have the same problem, let's run with it. Because it was already so pragmatic and down-paired, it would have been silly to change too much about it. So people just kept the framework, which now, as Kjetil already said, allows us to basically merge data. Had people started playing too much with the protocol, of course, that's no longer possible. But people were pragmatic about it. They had a problem and they used the easiest way to go about it. And I think then, as Kjetil already alluded to, is I think the way this collegial style, that people are responsible for their own national ecosystems. They know their own system best. It's their own system, it's their own language. They know it. But the collaboration puts another layer on top. And I think that makes it also different from other projects I've seen. So it's not just one, as any good sauce doesn't have just one ingredient. It's the right mix, but it is the mix for which the time is ripe now.
Now, Kjetil, you're the head of oncology of a large institution. You have a lot of colleagues. What's been their impression of this project? What have they said about it?
In Norway, when we started the National Precision Medicine Initiative in Norway, we asked sort of for the trust of the whole country, from the oncology and pathology and hematology community, that we should do something together. And the message we said was, this is not a competition. It's about putting this to patients. And if we work together and have a few common priorities, we may release the resources from the government to sort of implement some of this. And we succeeded with that, and we had that trust. And we tried to sort of distribute the glory and the honor, etc., because it goes on all over the country, in our country. And I think precision medicine, from a European perspective, in terms of equal access and spreading this, because here at this meeting we can hear these wonderful stories about something that's very cutting edge and, very advanced, and that not everybody can do.
Yeah.
This is about spreading this and For precision medicine to work for many patients, for it to scale, we need to have the diagnostics, we need competence building, we need people to practice, we need trials for that, and then we need also to work on things to get into the ordinary healthcare very much, because otherwise this will stop at some point, right?
I actually think that is another factor, is that the colleagues in this project have been able to mobilize the entire ecosystem around their cause. So they were driven by clear clinical need, but they were able to bring on board first the diagnostic side, then the clinician side. But then it very soon became like you have to involve the hospital. So they had the administration to support them. They got payers on board, they got HTAs on board and regulated. And everyone has been able to do this, not to the same degree everywhere, and it wasn't always necessary. But you can see that they were really building a supportive ecosystem around themselves that then started to drive it actually at some point. And I think that's one of the success factors that we have seen. You have to be able to mobilize this ecosystem, not just be yourself. It's not about publishing a paper. This is much more multi-stakeholder, making sure no one takes up too much space. So I think that is what people really succeeded.
Looking at other great examples, you can see, okay, it's working in Norway, it's working in Denmark, in Netherlands. And then you can also motivate your own people in other countries to say, hey, it's working there, why don't we try it? Why don't we discuss with Kjetil and see how we can do it?
And well, given the challenges you're facing in Estonia too, I'm sure some of this is drifting into, well, heck, maybe we can do this across other platforms as well. This thinking must be drifting into your clinical practice. Yep. It must.
One other aspect of this is how do we source the drugs, not only to one trial in one country, but to many trials, and how do we work with industry so that they want to access all the trials. So one way we try to do that is we try to lower their costs. We said they can enter all the trials through one point of entry. They can write one contract and they can access all the trials. It'll be like they access a synthetic multinational trial in a way. So we try to lower their cost and see can we then attract more drugs because they could spread out. It'll allow us to find more patients with rare biomarkers, basically.
Sure.
To build on what Kjetil just said and what Anni said before is I think we should not underestimate what is already happening in Europe. So we have, like this is now for a previous project, but we have developed country profiles where we mapped the state of precision medicine implementation per country. And we should not believe that the eastern side of Europe doesn't have precision medicine. I think that's a misconception in the western part, and there's much more going on. And I think the advantage that these countries have is they have less legacy structures to replace. So once they get going, they have enormous speed and have less inhibition to adopt certain, for example, help tools as automation. So I do think this is a really exciting space. We will definitely continue this mapping because I think there is a misconception of how much is really going on, of what is already moving on the ground.
So what are you talking about tomorrow? You're giving a presentation tomorrow. What's going to be your key takeaway from the presentation?
So we've learned a lot, and it is like a lot has been about observation. So we tried and failed mainly. So you try something and it's not really working, and at some point you find this magical hook, and then we've been trying to help each other to go forward. So if it works in one country, you want to be able to replicate it, and then you replicate it again, and there are always slight changes. So we've been trying to distill the essence, if you want, what you need if you want to start now in a new country. And that's what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow.
Kjetil, obviously this has been hugely successful. What do you hope to get out of the joint action? What do you hope comes out now? You've delivered, you've proof of concept, yes. Now what? How do you take this into this joint action, this big monster project across multiple jurisdictions, big government bodies? A very famous U.S. politician once said, you don't go hunting big game in your underwear. What are you going to do here?
The joint action has 29 countries in there, as you said, and more than 150 partners. And because of the success of Primrose and the way that could serve as a blueprint for aggregating data, the Primrose leadership will lead the work packages on treatment and trials in the joint action. And there we try to think, more than 120 partners have signed up for that work package so far. We try to think, how can we scale this and how can we make a framework that could work in a larger setting in Europe. And basically what we need to do or be able to do in order to advance the implementation of precision medicine, which is what the Commission wants. We need to be able to provide more data on what's working and what's not working for regulators and payers so that, this moves into the ordinary healthcare. We plan 3 main activities. One is to set up a clinical trial network that connects basically every hospital that wants to be involved and can do molecular diagnostics and operate a molecular tumor board, either by themselves or in a national network or in a network that this project will provide, and that they can stratify patients onto trials. And that network we think we will have to make one big platform trial, but we also think we can take a lot of other trials. We think we need to work...
Platform trial is going to be tough with that many people.
We think we can have different trials and we can aggregate the data. We can standardize the outputs. We can make a very pragmatic standard oncology trial, sort of. But it's all going to be about how can we...
You're going to need everyone's together mentally to make that work.
And we're trying to do that now. And we're also trying to discuss with industry and would they come with their drugs.
Yeah.
Some of those discussions are, they want to see things earlier in the lines of treatment. They want to see things happen not off-label. They're afraid of price erosion or renegotiations, but they may be willing to give us their drugs in parallel with them doing their phase 3 trials on bigger indications, for example, to expand, the possibility across different tumors.
Or label extensions as well, potentially.
Precisely.
Or label extension, yeah.
The second thing we want to do is we want to set up a mechanism to also collect data from prospective trials and registries around Europe that collect off-label use.
Yeah.
Those data go to waste. We should collect them. The third thing we want to do is we want to set up a framework that supports managed entry agreements. They work wonderful in some countries, not in other countries. And that's about, saying there's not enough evidence to support full price. There's uncertainty, but could we start using the drug, collect more data, and negotiate the price later, basically. Those are the three main things we want to do in that part of the joint action.
I think something that is special about the primary setup and that will hopefully be taken forward in the joint action is when we talk international trials or platform trials, we talk one central structure and then try to force everyone into it. I think here the approach is more to agree on a minimal basic standard and then let people join whenever they decide to. So to build an incentive that people want to join based on a minimal set instead of trying to force something. There then of course also would come with the overhead and the administration and the management, which then becomes limiting. So we distribute basically the system and you aggregate based on interest on a concrete case. So it kind of distributes the work and the responsibility in a different way. And it's about having this incentive. Why do I want to be part of it instead of I tell you what to do? That is the critical point when it makes it different in terms of organization.
Well, again, I congratulate all of you. It's been a huge success. Kjetil, Anni, Bettina, thank you for your time, and I wish you all success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our editor is Mark Brodeen. Our project manager is Caden Drake. The Vital Health Podcast is a production of Vital Transformation, LLC, copyright 2025.